Hi everyone, and welcome and thank you for joining us at the Doing Business Better presentation. Today's topic is developing staff's ability to continuously improve the way they work. I'm your host, Shandell, and before we begin, I just want to go through some housekeeping with you. You'll be put on mute, during the presentation to reduce any background noise and disruptions. Should you wish to ask a question, please raise your hand or type the question in the chat box. If you're dialing in, please press *9. The presenters ask that all questions are to be saved to the end. So now I'll pass you on to Stephen Grech, the presenter today from Doing Business Better. Thanks, Stephen.
No worries. Thank you very much for that. Welcome back to those who joined us last week. I hope you gained a lot from the session, and also welcome to the many new people who are joining us today. For those that are familiar with this program, today's part 8 of a 9-part series, and actually it'll be quite an interesting one today because I'll be pulling together a lot of the material from the previous one to show how to all wrap up together. So I'm really focusing on giving people the tools to become more productive and look at the way they do their business and how they can do better so that delivers a better experience for the customer, but also reduces the costs and it releases capacity of your staff to do more work, to do more jobs, bring more income, and by reducing costs, increasing profits. So each session I'll give you some tips and tools, and I'll give you a few more today and sort of pull it all together from some of the other sessions. So Doing Business Better, basically I set up the company about 12 years ago to work with businesses to become more productive, work with staff to help change the culture of the way they work, to see work differently, to make work a lot easier for staff and more productive and freeing up the time. So it's really about implementing good practices. A lot of places I go to, they haven't really got good processes. They do it as top of their head, what makes sense, common sense, but they're not really productive and not really efficient at what they're doing. And we can do a lot better. So I'm giving you some of those tips and tools. And they've got process problems all the time, so we want to be able to look at how you can solve problems and move on and become more competitive. Again, for those that aren't familiar with it, we've gone through session 1 right through to session, now we're up to completed session 7 the other day, and today we're doing number 8, which is developing staff's ability to just improve the way they work. So this webinar builds on the learning of the previous sessions. We know there's lots of wasted time and effort, and what we want to do is really develop staff's ability to continuously improve. And I'm going to show you some tips on doing that and how some of the other sessions link together. Now, a significant amount of time is wasted, man hours, and they're often quite avoidable. For those that are familiar with past sessions, you know, people were late, so that people were calling in. Staff are not doing the work, they're handling phone calls, they're being chased by the customer. Where's this, where's that, where's the job, where's my quote, and taking them away from the tools. And when you start looking at, you know, when I work with electricians in this sort of space, it's a massive amount of time that's wasted on the phone, doing things that they shouldn't be doing because they shouldn't be getting the calls in the first place. They often get interrupted. Lots of times staff are being interrupted. If it's internal and one staff member's interrupting another to ask, where's this, where's that, how do you do this, how do you do that, that's 2 people's time. The interruptions from the previous slide was, you know, customers calling in to interrupt. So when you start clocking up how many times you get interrupted and how much time do you spend being interrupted, you know, 2 or 3 times a day for 5-10 minutes, you know, there's 20 minutes a day gone, or 40 minutes a day. Just remember from a previous session, every 20 minutes lost is 5% of your day down. And if you start adding that up, you know, it accumulates to 10, 15, 20, 30%. And if you had that 30% of your labour back, imagine what you can do to drum up more business or do more work. People spend a lot of time looking for tools, looking for equipment. That just doesn't make sense. Why don't we organise the workplace as a technique called 5S, which was discussed in a previous session. I might touch again on it today, which just makes it easier to find things. Why waste time looking for stuff? Why go to places and run out of stock and then you have to nick off down to the shop to grab some more things? Why not have all the equipment you need within reason available at the time you're doing the work? So we talked about those in previous times. A lot of times people spend time writing things down and then typing it in. Why don't we just handle it once and do it and get rid of some of the paperwork? And as I said previously, I work with a company that does things on apps. So when you go into places, you're doing your quotes, when you're doing your measurements, when you're writing things up, put it all in the one spot and do it once and record it once, not have to transcribe it on a piece of paper, then go back to the office and type it up. And one of the guys I was working with spent all nights, a lot of time at nights, writing things up, doing quotes. Now, why don't we just do bang on the app and do it straight away? Save heaps of time. And not arriving on time is often a common one, and then people nick off and say, well, I was waiting for you, I had to go to work. We can use technology to help us arrive on time, and scheduling work and not double booking for people. There's lots of things we can do. So there's lots of waste in our processes where we're handling payments, sending out the invoices. Well, why don't you can do payments on your apps, all that sort of stuff. And obviously making mistakes. We're putting things in the wrong place, we're doing it the wrong way. Now, every time we do double handling, defects, errors, rework, it's costing time, costing effort, costing materials. They're all avoidable if we have a good process. So we know that the ideas of staff to improve the way they work are often untapped. We talked about that previously, and staff know what we can do to improve, but we don't have an easy way and a routine way of getting these ideas onto the table to work on. We've also learned in previous sessions that there's lots of different ways of solving problems. So today I just want to introduce you to a thing called a cycle for continuous improvement designed by Deming, which is called PDSA, or Plan, Do, Study, Act. And I just want to show you how quickly it works, because what we end up doing is we plan a process, we'll do it, we'll look at how we measure that process to see how it's going, and we'll do some actions to make that process better. So to give you a quick example, if you just think of this one, and this is based on a previous job, it was taking 36 hours to do something from the moment someone called to the moment the invoice is sent and done, taking 36 hours turnaround time. But their goal was, well, we should be able to do this in 10 hours. Okay, well, let's find out what our baseline is. So it was 36 in this particular case. So we want to start looking at how we can make changes to the process to reduce that time, getting it down to 10. So we do it, what kind of change, we want to engage staff, what kind of change can we do to our process so we can start reducing some of the time it takes to do this? And people will suggest blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, let's give that a test. Let's try that. Let's use the PDSA cycle that I was mentioning before. So let's plan it. What kind of change we're going to make to reduce, this down a few hours? Well, we'll do X, Y, and Z. Okay, well, let's do it. And we'll measure it and see where it comes up with. Oh, look, it came up with 32. Okay, now we've got to ask the question in the ACT area, do we adopt that change? Do we adapt that change? Or do you abandon that change? Now, it's achieved what you wanted to do. It starts driving it down from 36 to 32. So someone will say, well, yeah, that's good. Let's do that. Let's adopt that change. Okay, well, what else can we do, guys? And someone will say, well, we could do blah, blah, blah. Okay, let's plan it. Let's do it. And let's study the results. And look, it's gone down some more towards our 10 hours. So we just keep asking staff, what can we do differently to drive down these times, and let's test it to see, because we obviously don't want to have some side effects and something else bad happens, until we keep driving it down using Plan, Do, Study, Act to get to the magic 10. And obviously, once we've hit the target of 10, then that's the kind of process we want to implement. That's the kind of process we want to write standard operating procedures for. That's the kind of process we want to teach our staff to use. Now, you're asking the staff how to do this better, and they're telling you, and they'll be totally engaged because you're listening to them. You're getting rid of the frustration, the kind of things that drive them mad, and we're delivering things better so we can do some more work and keep the business going and actually grow the business, because we can do this instead of 36 hours. We're knocking these over quicker. We're not getting calls saying, where is it at? And you can start churning out more work, grow your business. Previously, we talked about using process mapping to map out your key 3 or 4 or 5 key business end-to-end processes. I've done this with electricians and plumbers and all that sort of stuff. And we're looking at, where's the start of the process to the end. For those that weren't in the previous sessions, the top row is all the steps they were going through to do the process. In this particular case, different colours are different people. So one colour will be X person, another colour will be a manager, the client, different colour, and so on. And we went from, this process on the top row down to, why don't we do it this way? The future process, a lot quicker, a lot easier, a lot sharper, and free out the capacity to do another job. Instead of doing 10 jobs a week, maybe we could do 12 jobs a week. And each job is worth 100 grand, so you can make 200 grand a week more, or whatever it is, 20 grand a week more. 20 grand a week more in the 52 weeks in the year, hey, that's big bucks. So we would just show you the other example of a water industry where behind it were 5 sheets, all different steps, lots of steps, and what they ended up doing in the future is what's in the hand. Now, it took them hardly any time, and they freed up basically $300,000 worth of labour to do other things. This one here went from 2 sheets where it says current process circled in red, in the red circle, to the bottom one, and they freed up $200,000 a year every year. So after 5 years, that's $1 million I've saved, and that's just one process. So you got to start asking yourself the questions: how many processes you've got? We talked about previously looking at end-to-end process, and this is, a real example of an electrician I worked with, who, was doing some work and having to chase and rework, and we looked at there was $300,000 or $400,000 of rework just in these few steps, and we haven't got anywhere yet. We haven't even created the job or even issued the invoice. So by using some of these tools, process mapping, plan, do, study, act, there's a whole range of things. We talked about previously where you've got fishbone diagrams to look at where you got problems, and you start generating, we've got a problem here, they don't arrive at time. We've got things, what we think is causing it, it's cause and effect diagram. And we're starting to ask the staff, what are their ideas? And they say, we could do this, we could do this, we could do this. We need to develop staff's ability to look at what can we do to make their job easier and more enjoyable and safer. And by engaging staff and them learning these tools, it's absolutely critical so that they get part of the solution. We talked about 5 whys. We've got a problem, why is that happening, till we get down the bottom in the red. What action could we take to fix this forever? How many times you got problems that pop up and keep popping up? It must drive you mad. Why don't we just nail it and fix it, make it go away? We need to start using some of these tools for our staff. I can teach your staff how to do this. I can teach your team leaders and supervisors how to lead this and run with these. So we can generate more and more ideas to improve. And I'll quickly, just finishing up on this part of it, we talked previously about 5S, about the layout. How do we make it very visible? How do we make sure we don't run out of stuff? And there's 5 steps you go through. And I'll just refresh your memory on a couple of the photos where you go to places I've been to and they've got just stuff lying around everywhere. People's spending a lot of time looking for the tools. Why don't we just make it organised? Why don't we make them visual? Why don't we use lines, colours and labels to make everyone know where to find things straight away? Instead of scrunging around on the left-hand side, look at the stuff, let's organise colour coding. Blue means this, red means that, yellow means this, label it. Put signage, make it very easy for people to find things. You'll be amazed how much time people will save, which means if you're the owner of the business or you're the manager of the business, you will have staff being more productive, doing more jobs, because they're just grabbing the things they need. Now, we talked about this previously, so I just wanted to just remind you on that sort of stuff. So one of the key things that we talked about, which builds up towards, how do we develop staff's ability, is we need to have a clear plan. And we need to make sure we've got all our ducks lined up. Now, if you've got your vision, you've got your needs, you've got your skills, you've got resources, and you have a plan to roll this out across the business, you will have successful change that will stick and you will nail it. But what I find is someone, maybe the boss doesn't have the vision and doesn't understand what process improvement or lean is, or what the benefits are, so you end up having confusion. You might have a person that doesn't have a real need, and therefore things drag along, slow progress. Staff haven't been trained to do problem solving, 5 whys, all those things, and therefore you have anxiety because they've been put into spots where they can't really manage it. If you don't have the resources and thought about the resources, then it gets frustrating. And if you didn't have a plan for all this, then people go off sort of willy-nilly and make it up as they go, and it starts, it's not very successful. You know, I can help you with all these things. We can train the staff, we can work out what resources to have a plan so you nail this. And obviously, if you do that, you're going to achieve lots of benefits across the organisation, not just in money, but you also become more business competitive. You also become better referrals for clients. Clients will refer you on, so you don't have to do any chasing or less chasing because they will give you the work. They'll tell their friends. Now, when I worked with another electrician in times going past, and his quote, and it's on the YouTube for Sandoman Electrics, if you look it up, he saved thousands of hours. That's big bucks. He's turned around his business and increased his profits, had a massive increase in turnover because he was doing quotes and winning the job straight away. So he needed more staff. If you want to be like that, then give us a call and I can tell you how to work this through your place. So just imagine if you got 10, 20, 30%, 50% more profit, what would you do with it? Well, you'd be able to increase your market share. You might hire more staff, like the last slide I showed. You know, he put 2 staff on straight away because he was winning the jobs. He was responding really quickly. He was not having people chase them. He was arriving on time because they had a scheduling system. He improved his cash flow because he got payments online by tap and go type of things. Therefore, increased their profits, increased the money in the bank. So then he invested in more equipment, more vans, more people in vans, the technology he needed, and then engaged me to train the staff so that they want to see more opportunity to make their work better. That's what we do about driving continuous improvement. We want staff to see work differently and be frustrated by and annoyed by having to have hassles. Because if you have these things pop up, there must be ways of fixing it. If there are ways of fixing it, we should find them and nail it so we don't have these problems come up again. I think last week I just mentioned the 5 steps approach to improvement, and that's where this comes into developing or building staff's capabilities but it does start with management. Management need to know what their role is. Management need to understand the principles behind all this and what the benefit is. So they can see the benefits to the staff, the client, to the business, the bottom line, to their longevity, their business competitiveness, then they'll want to do the next bits. And the next bits are, well, let's figure out what processes and how well we're going, and let's start fixing, let's start mapping them, and let's start having a plan to make this across the business forever, and maybe not make it up as you go. You can if you like, but that's not very effective. And there's some real problems with those for businesses that sort of make it up as they go because they tend to fail, or they tend to say this never worked. You know, we tried, it never worked. So I really suggest you avoid the same problems that other businesses have had. I'm trying to help you nail it, do it once, do it properly. And then we need to get staff to see that and be engaged to come up with the ideas for improvement, know what the tools are, and then there's pieces of work to fix things, whether it's the layout, the cupboard, the storeroom, whatever it is. There's little pieces of work that need to be done. So there is a role for, if you're the owner, if you're the manager, if you're a team leader or a supervisor, there is a role for you to lead in this. It can't be done just by the staff because they need leadership and they need to be guided, and they need to be given the time to do this, and they need to be given the skills to do this. So if you've got that in mind, that this is a good thing of all the things I've talked about, wrapping up some of the other sessions about looking at the layout, improving the flow of the processes, then there's a role for you in this. If you just take if you're a sort of more micro business, what's that, sort of 7-person business as an example, then there's a role in just like from yourself or yourselves to be supported as managers and owners of that business to understand the benefits of this and how to bring this across your business, to understand the principles behind it and what kind of tools and techniques we'd use, whether it's 5S, the layout stuff, make it visible, colours, lines, labels, or whether it's mapping to identify problems and make things like quicker and faster, and to see if there's a commitment from the organisation. If you're that sort of micro business of 7, say, or less, then it's really important that the owner, the manager, is trained to an extent, and probably one other person, so it doesn't rely just on you, and then they can help their colleagues. And that training that I'm sort of referring to could be 1 or 2 days, depending on the kind of organisation and the maturity of the organisation in this space, to learn how to map process and identify problems, to problem solve, generate ideas, and to look at how to redesign and improve the process. There's some training involved in that sort of space. But staff want to do this when they can start seeing the things that drive them mad and frustrate them. And so if I stick to that micro business bit, there's a couple of people in the red that really need to be trained in this at a more sophisticated and I suppose a bit more intense level, so they can do this by themselves and lead it. But all the other staff need to be involved. So they need some education and awareness themselves so they can start seeing work differently. And usually that's like a half day kind of thing, or a bit more depending on the kind of organisation, so they can see what wastes of time. I want them to get frustrated. I want them to be annoyed about work now. I want them to see the things that, silly, why are we running out here? Why do I have to fix this twice? Why did some problems, 4 problems happen during the week? We want them to be frustrated, so you can help them fix it, or I can help them fix it, whatever it needs to be. But we don't want to stay like that. Now, if you're a larger organisation, then there's a few more people that need to be trained on that 1 or 2 day level to know the tools and techniques. And I can help even more than that to help map and improve processes if you need it, or you can do it yourself, and I can teach you how to do that. But all the other staff need to be informed at sort of that half-day-ish level, so they can support this. So everyone needs to be involved. You go to some factories, they're fantastic in this, in lean manufacturing, but they do it on the factory floor, but they have no idea how to do it in the office. We need to involve the whole area. So there's plenty of administrative processes that are not manufacturing. Taking orders, purchasing, finance, HR, you name it, logistics, transport, refrigeration, whatever you want to call it, ordering, accounts payable, accounts receivable, they're all processes. And everyone needs to be able to see the things that drive them mad and make the process flow better. We need to get people to see things differently and be part of the solution. So therefore, it's really upskilling the staff on how to map processes, or how to participate in doing that, how to make the place really well organised, so things are very easy to see and find, coloured, labelled, lined, organised, never running out, little systems in place, Kanban systems, all these things. So we don't go to sites and say, oh, gee whiz, I didn't fill the truck before I left, I fill the van. And we don't have then unhappy customers, and we're handling calls and inquiries, which we shouldn't. We should be taking the inquiry, booking the job and rolling up and doing a quote as quick as we can, so that we can win the job. And that's what happened in the case I was saying before, that basically doing the quote in the car, in the van, and pressing the button when the person goes back to the desk, they've already got their quote. Oh, that's great, yeah, I'll do it straight away, rather than having to chase them for, when are you going to send me the quote, when are you going to send me the quote. So if we do all that, we have really good processes, and we can create really good standard operating procedures and polish their operating procedures that we can train people. This is the best way of doing it. Everyone do it the same way. Don't do it different ways, because if we do different ways, we're going to have chaos. We're going to have variable costs. We're going to have variable experiences, and it's not good for anybody, for the customer or for the business. So this webinar is really about how to reduce costs, how to reduce the time taken to do things, how to free up capacity. That can be quotes, whatever it is, how to win more work, and particularly stop wasting time doing things you shouldn't be doing. If you do all that and do things a lot quicker and a lot better, and first time right every time, then you're going to improve quality, you're going to reduce the costs, you're going to increase your profits. I don't see a problem with that. For me, it's a no-brainer. So in the 9th and final session, which is next week on the 14th, we'll learn some more tools and techniques to do your business better. So the next one on the 9th and final session is training all staff to see wasted time and effort and solve process problems. So look, I hope you got some value out of today. I hope you do register for next week, and you do tell your colleagues to listen in on this either now or later on. I'll pass it back to Chandel for the next part.
Thanks, Stephen, for that interesting presentation. Found the content really useful and hope that all our listeners did too. If you have any questions or comments, please raise your hand now or type the questions in the chat box. You're more than welcome to remain anonymous, but if you feel comfortable, please introduce yourself. Okay, so just... Okay, now we have a question that's come in during the presentation, Stephen, and that is, what's the most common mistake businesses make when they start to build a continuous improvement mindset amongst staff?
There's probably a few things there. One is they don't have a well thought out plan, and I think I was mentioning that before. So they just jump into it, and when they do that, sort of make it up as they go. Why don't we spend some time to come up with a plan to roll this out across the organisation and do it once, do it properly, and make sure it sticks. Most managers also don't really understand the lean principles and tools, so they might get someone else to say, "You go off and do it," and that's not sort of the way it really works. Because if they want to do this across the organisation, they really need to buy into it, and they really need to understand and be involved and understand the benefits. If I said to business owner that you could save 300 grand a year or 200 grand a year or 500 grand a year, and I've been to places in one process where we'll save 1.6 million, you're crazy not to do it. Absolutely crazy not to do it. So they need to be involved and lead them. And I suppose the other thing is we need to involve everyone. And you saw some slides where it had in blue, which is with all the other staff, whether it's electricians or admin, everyone needs to be involved. And what they tend to do, the ones that sort of stuff this up, to be blunt, is, they say, let's just get someone to fix a process here and a process there. But not everyone's involved. They don't understand why they're doing it, and it sort of falls over. Doesn't last.
Okay. Great, thanks, Stephen. And there's another question here. Where do we start on building a process, and is there a method on it? We have 8 to 9 staff.
Well, I'm just thinking. Could you repeat the question, sorry?
Sure. Where do we start on building a process? Well, it's probably 2 questions. Where do we start on building a process, and is there a method on it?
Well,
maybe that's some of the items you covered in some of the earlier presentations.
Yeah. Well, we need to be able to map out the process and document the steps people go through, how they actually do it, rather than what they think they do. When we start mapping out the process, then they realise they do a lot of chasing, rework, and double handling, and that gives us that opportunity to identify where the problems are, what can we do differently to make it flow better and reduce that time. That'd be a great example of that one, say, for 36 hours down to 10 hours. We'll get staff to really realise how many steps we're going through and how we can do a lot quicker, a lot easier.
Great. Another question. I know of other businesses that tried this, but it did not last long. How would you make it stick for the long term?
Well, it really does start with the owner and the manager understanding the benefits. And if they really understand the benefits, then we're 95% on the way. And what that can do for the business and the customers and the bottom line profits, and also to become business competitive. So it must start from the top, being committed and understanding the benefits. I suppose another one is that they really need to have some champions to develop and drive the change, and also the tools and techniques to improve. And obviously, developing the champions means multiples of those if we can, because people do come and go and they do leave. So we need to make sure that we've got enough capability in-house. And then it's also crucial that all other staff are trained and involved in how to see different forms of waste, what's wasting time and effort, how to start solving problems, so they all get it. So it's not about, you know, one or two people getting it across a place. Everyone's got to get it to some degree, and some more than others, because some need to lead it. But everyone needs to understand the key principles, and that there are tools and techniques. And when you do that, you're making their job easier, and they love it. And they'll keep telling you more and more, and then you're on a roll.
Great, thanks, Stephen. The final question. My guys don't care about ways of reducing costs or saving money. How do you get staff involved, engaged to fix problems on a regular basis?
Okay, well, it's important you find what's important to staff. You know, I usually ask them, as I said before, what frustrates you, what drives you mad about work, and then they start, and what can we do to fix it? And they usually sit on pots of gold. So it's really about, you know, finding out what's important to them, and respecting them in terms of trying to tap into their brain. And if you start doing that, then you will start really improving customer experience. You're getting great ideas from people, and they're not afraid to be able to say something about it. We want staff to tell us what's wrong so we can fix it. And the best way to doing that is for mapping out the process and getting them to tell us why these hassles occur, so we can work out what we can do. Back to yourself. Still there, Shandell?
Sorry, Stephen, thanks for that. Doesn't appear to be any more questions. Thanks again, Stephen, for taking the time to speak to our members today. Thank you all to those that took time to join us. Our recordings will be available if you want to re-watch and share this with your teams. Our next webinar will be next Tuesday with Michael Weeks, and that will be a technical presentation, followed by on Wednesday again 11, doing business better, the next session with Stephen. So the full schedule can be found on our website, so please register. If you can't attend, we do share the recordings with you. So thanks again, and enjoy the rest of your day.